Thank you so much. It is such a privilege to be here today, and I love that there are so many young people here today. It was when I was a teenager that I began to understand exactly what abortion is and became passionate to make a difference in this world. I hated injustice. It was something I think God just naturally created me to be very passionate about injustice. And so when I heard of the injustice of abortion, it sparked my heart. And I didn't know that's the direction God was taking me long term, but it is something that, a journey that God has taken me on. After doing several papers and speeches on the issue of abortion in junior high and high school, I went on to college, again, chose that topic more than once, got a degree in business and psychology, went on to the University of Iowa to get a master's in social work. And my first job after I graduated with that degree was to move to Missouri and work in the pro-life movement in a maternity home, a place, an old Catholic building that had been transformed into a home for unwed mothers that were coming from all over the United States. And so that was the beginning of my journey in making my career out of the pro-life movement. I took a little break, had 3 beautiful daughters, and, well, I think they're beautiful. And then the Lord called me back into this movement in 2004 when I got a call from Living Alternatives Pregnancy Resource Center about being their director in the Bloomington Normal Center, which is about 40 miles from here, and began what is almost 14 years of working for that ministry. I've been the CEO since 2009, and it has been a wonderful, wonderful journey. The mission statement for Living Alternatives, I kind of want to make our ministry a little bit of an example today of what happens when the church sees something, an injustice in the community, or a sin in the community, or a need in the community, and decides to do something about it. That is what Living Alternatives is. In 1985, a pastor in Springfield, Illinois, was so alarmed and so upset about all the women in his community choosing abortion. He began to pray daily about it, and God told him to start a pregnancy center, at which point he turned around and told God, I'm a very busy man. I am a pastor of this growing church, this wonderful congregation. I don't have time to start a ministry. And the Lord's response to him was, if you don't start this ministry, babies will die. And so he began this ministry 32 years ago. And over the 32 years, the ministry has opened 25 different pregnancy centers, 12 of which are still currently under our legal corporate umbrella. And I have the privilege of working with all 12 of those centers. We have 6 of those now are medical. You see, when we first started pregnancy centers in the 1970s and 1980s, the initial thought was, let's offer her a free pregnancy test and let's help her with diapers. That was the beginning of the movement. I'm sure you already know about that. But we have transformed over the years as the needs have changed, as the generations of women having babies have changed. We've had to face the different needs and come up with solutions for them. Just as often the church does, right? When you see a need in your community or you see a change in your congregation that brings forth a new need, you look for a new program or a new ministry to reach out and meet that need. And that's exactly what Living Alternatives did. You see, Living Alternatives is a 501c3 nonprofit. It is faith-based, it is organized for religious purposes, and it is organized around this mission statement. Living Alternatives is committed to saving the lives of unborn children by promoting life-affirming options and providing practical assistance while sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ in both word and deed, and ministering restoration to those who have been wounded by the trauma of abortion. That has been our mission statement since 1985, and it's a mission statement we still base our decisions on today. You see now, as we've continued to grow and be a part of this ministry, of this need in the community, we no longer just do pregnancy tests And we no longer just hand out free diapers to help encourage women and help them to be able to provide and to choose life. Instead, now we do many other things. 6 of our centers are now medical clinics. 2 of our non-medical clinics, the one in Kokomo, Indiana, and Coal City, Illinois, are in the process of converting to medical, so we will soon be medical in those communities as well. But we, as you probably know from your local pregnancy center, there's a need to give more information. And so when a woman comes to us and she has the question, am I pregnant? It's great to give her the pregnancy test, but then all we can do is say, you have a positive pregnancy test. But there's so much more we need to know. Does she have a viable pregnancy? She needs to see the truth. So she knows there are a lot of people out there telling her that pregnancy centers are lying to her. An ultrasound helps her see for herself the life growing within her. And so what a wonderful opportunity for us to offer ultrasounds to her, to have trained nurses and medical personnel meeting with her, answering her questions about pregnancy, about abortion, about the life living within her, about what her options are, about the risks to her body if she chooses something like this. So we're able to do an ultrasound. We look to see, is the pregnancy in the uterus where it's supposed to be? Is there cardiac activity? We even look to see the rate of the heart at that stage. We measure to see how far she is along, which also answers a lot of her questions about her pregnancy. And then the nurse is there to give her sound medical advice. We also saw the need to help encourage her in her journey towards parenthood. So we started a parenting education program. We call it HOPE. It stands for Helping Others Parent Through Education. And she comes in weekly and meets with a mentor who is able to love her, disciple her, as Jesus called all of us to do, and to help her prepare for pregnancy, how to have a healthy pregnancy, what to expect in labor and delivery, how to take care of a newborn, general parenting skills, but also to help her get to know the one who loves her, who created her, to introduce her to God and help her in her faith journey. So we have a parenting education program for that. We also build support around the possibility of adoption. I loved sitting in on that last workshop. What a blessing it is to have adoption. Adoption is wonderful. I believe that God is passionate about adoption and about families who reach out of their comfort zone to take in and grow their family through adoption. And so we prepare for her a safe place where she can just ask questions, where she can consider for months through the whole pregnancy the possibility of adoption in a confidential and a non-judgmental setting. We don't tell her what we think she should do. It's a place for her to just to journey through her options. A lot of women come to us, and abortion is one of the things that they are considering. A lot of women come to us, and abortion is something that they've done in the past. Most women who have an abortion don't just have one. They have a scarred history of abortion that is changing their life, that is creating new problems. And so we also work around her situation and help her grieve that, help her process it, help her find forgiveness and understand the grace of God after a decision like that, so that she can move forward in confidence that she's loved by God, instead of continuing down a trajectory of rejection and not wanting anything to do with God because she thinks God hates her. And so what a wonderful blessing it is to bring her back to her Creator and help her find healing. I say her, we are ministering to men and women in that respect. So one of the things that we started, besides weekly counseling and groups in our centers, is a program called Deeper Still. We started a chapter right here in Illinois of Deeper Still, and it's a weekend retreat where men and women can come and process through the confession of their abortion, understanding the grace and forgiveness of a God when we confess and we ask Him to forgive us, to also live in confidence and in celebration of that forgiveness and that grace, and then to go through the process of memorializing and grieving that child, naming that child, being able to walk away from the retreat a much healthier person than they were on Friday when they arrived. We started those retreats in 2014. We've had 8 retreats so far and had 74 men and women go through those retreats. So we're celebrating some incredible testimonies of people from age 20 in their 70s who are coming to these retreats to talk about their abortion experience and find hope again. We also found at one of the programs that we started was the rocking chair, and it was because there was this changing movement in the medical community where women were finding their doctors actually encouraging them to choose abortion because maybe there was something wrong. Maybe they weren't going to have this healthy pregnancy. Maybe there were some risks involved, or through the ultrasound they were finding that this pregnancy was going to either be terminal or there were going to be some health issues. And so when women used to be able to count on that their doctor was going to encourage them to choose life, now women were finding their doctors instead encouraging them to just go ahead and terminate the pregnancy and start over, to throw out the life living within them and start again. And so we started a program to be able to help them. So when she gets a diagnosis that is heartbreaking, we encourage her to let God be God, to choose life and carry that pregnancy to term, to be able to prepare for the birth and sometimes death of her child. We build a whole program around helping her grieve the loss of that baby, visit with the baby through the technology of ultrasound while the baby is still living inside of her, to be able to bond and to be able to prepare to say her goodbyes. We help her form a whole birth plan. We also have started STI testing. We're working with the sexually active in our community, and we know that sexually transmitted infections and diseases are a really great problem in our society today. In fact, a couple years ago, chlamydia, the Department of Health announced that the CDC, that chlamydia was the largest outbreak of an infection in the entire history of the United States. And so we have reacted to that, and we are now offering STI testing. We found that some women, for them to come in and just meet with us for a little while in a week wasn't quite enough. And so we started a residential program, kind of where I got my start. And we now have a home in Champaign, Illinois called Mercy's Refuge, a place we built this beautiful house where they can come and spend 6 to 9 months, and it's a great program of them helping them understand the purpose for which God created them for and arise to that purpose as we have a program that we take them through called Ditch the Baggage, which is just that, for them to figure out some things that have gone wrong in their life and move forward. Our hope and dream is to someday, as soon as we've been fundraising for a couple years on this, but to also have mobile units so that we can go to her. Sometimes transportation is an issue. Sometimes she's afraid to come up to us, but what if we had a mobile unit that we parked close to a high school or a college or an urban neighborhood that is being targeted by the abortion community today? Or maybe we would park the mobile unit at a truck stop. There are a lot of issues with sex trafficking and prostitution. What if we could reach out and help her find hope in her future? We're looking with promise to that. We are doing what God has called us to do, and we've been doing that for 32 years now. But a year ago, our world was a little bit shaken by the signing of the State Bill 1564 here in the state of Illinois. In July of 2016, the SB 1564 was signed by Republican Governor Bruce Rauner. And it stated that we would have to there are 3 big pieces in that legislation. One is that all medical personnel in clinics, including pro-life pregnancy centers, would have to give abortion information to let her know abortion was one of her options. Also to state the benefits of abortion, or in other words, to present abortion as beneficial. The third was to give abortion referral information. In other words, help her know where she could obtain an abortion. As you can imagine, this floored us. When we heard the bill was in the House and the Senate, we couldn't believe that our religious freedoms and our freedom of speech, our constitutional rights, were being discussed. And so we were especially surprised when our Republican governor signed that bill into law. Imagine for a minute, I've told you a little bit about the ministry that I'm a part of, but imagine for a minute that it's your ministry that's losing its freedom of speech or its freedom of religion. Imagine that your church or Lutherans for Life or the ministry that you're involved in locally was being told by the state or the federal government that you can't operate or you can't believe a certain way, that you have to say something or that you can't say something else. You can imagine that possibly that is happening to you, because I firmly believe that this is just where it's starting. We may be the medical personnel right now in the state of Illinois, but we should all be concerned about where this is going, what legal precedent is being set against the church and against nonprofit ministries. So effective January 1st, I'm never really good about remembering to change my slides, I apologize. Effective January 1st, 2017, we were required by the state of Illinois to present abortion as beneficial to our patients. Even though we are a nonprofit, even though we are faith-based, even though we are organized for religious purposes, we were being forced to discuss the benefits of abortion and provide referral information. John 10:10 proclaims that the thief comes only to steal and to kill and destroy. But Jesus came that we may have life and have it to the full. I stand before you today to let you know that Living Alternatives Pregnancy Resource Center did not cave to this pro-abortion agenda. We did not shrink or conform, but instead we stood strong in our efforts to protect life. Living Alternatives Pregnancy Resource Center has always been pro-life, and it will always be pro-life. We were pro-life when the ministry started in 1985, and we were fully pro-life on January 1st, 2017. But as you can imagine, there was a little fear of repercussions of what it meant to be non-compliant. We had to face what would happen should someone complain about us to the state. But we stood strong knowing that our God is God, right? And we looked at lots of scriptures and found lots of instances in the Bible when society told the disciples or someone that they couldn't speak in the name of Jesus or heal, and they did it confidently knowing that God was the one that we obey, right? And not man. So in response to this prayer, we were lucky, we were blessed by God to have some attorneys come around us and help support us. There's an organization called NIFLA that supports pregnancy resource centers, pregnancy medical clinics across the United States, 1,400 different ones. It stands for the National Institute of Family and Life Advocates. They came to our defense, as well as the Alliance for Defending Freedom. Also, the Thomas More Society stepped in, and lawsuits against the state of Illinois started forming as we began to fight the biggest battle that we've had to fight in a long time, since the beginning, since 1973. We were lucky, we were blessed, I keep saying lucky, we weren't lucky, God was in it all, and a federal judge in July of 2017 did grant us a temporary injunction in that case. So right now the state of Illinois cannot enforce that law against us, so we're praising God for that, yes. It is a temporary injunction, so we are waiting for the case to be seen in a federal court. There's another case in the state of California that the same attorneys are fighting all of this lumped together, and it is waiting for Supreme Court. It's a similar law, only their law in California was that they have to post it in their waiting room. If they're not going to refer someone for an abortion, they have to post that referral information in their waiting room, but they can refer them to their health department, their local health department, and then the health department will refer them to the abortion agency. So obviously they are still very upset about being a part of the process, but the law here in Illinois is actually worse than even in California. They say Illinois is the third worst state to live in when it comes to pro-life legislation. I think we're moving up. I'm not sure it's still third. But we're waiting to hear back from the Supreme Court and in prayer that we will win that battle in confidence. So we were even floored more when House Bill 40 came through the state of Illinois and was passed. I see some of you shaking your head, so you know a little bit about House Bill 40. But this bill would allow for state-funded abortions for all state employees and for Medicaid recipients. It lived right here in the state of Illinois. And this was signed again by our Republican governor, Bruce Rauner, on September 28th, 2017. Now, once this bill comes into law, which I've heard some people say that's January 1st, and I've heard some say June 1st, and I've heard some say they're still fighting that out, and so we're not really sure exactly when that's going to start. But it will force every person in Illinois to pay for these free abortions through our taxes. So there's obviously a lot of concern there. One of the problems about this, one of the many problems, goes beyond paying for it, but this is also going to be available during all 40 weeks of the pregnancy. So even if this baby is full term and can feel pain, this, obviously we know that's through most of the pregnancy, but even if this baby, it could survive outside of the womb, abortion will be allowed if they work for the state or if they are on Medicaid. It's also available for any reason. You see, right now in the state of Illinois, Medicaid will pay for your abortion, but only in the cases of incest or rape or the health and life of the mother. But now it's going to be for any reason. You don't even have to have some grand excuse for why you want an abortion. If you want it, Medicaid or the state of Illinois will pay for that. They're saying, that says 52,000, it's supposed to say 12,000, so I messed up my slide. They're saying this could increase the number of abortions to 52,000, so by 12,000, making it up to 52,000. I think that is a low estimate for how much this law will affect us. So let's look at the issue of cost, because I think I've heard a lot of people say that they not only can they not believe that the state of Illinois would pass that, especially that a Republican governor would sign such a bill that is so pro-choice, so pro-abortion, so anti-life, but that he would do it when the state of Illinois, even if you're from, I know lots of you are from Indiana or Iowa or Missouri or Wisconsin, and so you probably have heard the state of Illinois is a little bit of a mess when it comes to our budget, or our lack of a budget, or our unstable budget. And so a lot of people have been we're really surprised that the state of Illinois would be looking for new ways to spend money. But I want to give you a little information here and tell you about a little theory that I have. So the cost of an abortion from 9 to 10 weeks is typically around $390, up to 13 weeks, $450. Between 13 and 24 weeks, which 24 weeks right now is the legal limit for abortion in the state of Illinois, that is around $1,500. In 2014, Illinois paid for 145 abortions, again for those reasons of rape or incest or the life and health of the mother. And the total cost of those 145 abortions was $243,371. This is information Illinois Right to Life has put together for us. So the average cost of an abortion, if you do the math, is $1,650 per abortion. Now they say that 31% of our current abortions are by women who are already currently on Medicaid. So if we look at the 2015 total Illinois abortions, which was 39,856 in 2015, if you take 31%, that's 12,355 women who were on Medicaid found a way to pay for their own abortion. So now that's free, right? So in the coming year, if we have the same number of women who would have had an abortion anyhow, but now the state is paying for it, the number would be 12,355. If you multiply that times 1,650, I should have the teenagers in the room doing the math for us, it would be $10 million, 10,637,830. I'm not reading this right. $10,637,830 million. So there's a little bit of an increase in our budget, I would say. And there's no cap on this number of abortions, which is another thing that we've all found a little bit interesting. And in a state that's really struggling with their budget, and so much in debt, they didn't put a cap on this line item. Typically, like right now, I'm working on our 2018 budget, poring over it for a board meeting on Monday. If you've worked on a budget before, you know it's a lot of work, but you have a cap on each line item, right? And then you have this big cap on your overall budget you cannot go over no matter what. The state of Illinois has left this open-ended. There is no cap on this line item. So even though they're estimating the increase will be $12,000, if it is in fact only $12,000 that it increases by because of these free abortions, if you multiply that times 1,650, you get over $19 million. That's on top of what we just figured out with the $20 million. So the estimate is that this new bill could cost us up to $39 million. The Illinois Right to Life used Stroger Hospital in Cook County as an example. In 2014, they did 6,338 abortions on low-income women. If you were to multiply that, it comes over to about $10.5 million just for the amount of abortions done in one low-income hospital in the state of Illinois. So why should the state of Illinois and its governor say yes to this new way of spending money, this limitless way of spending money? And that's a question we've all been asking. And so I asked myself, what do state employees of Illinois and Illinois Medicaid recipients have in common? Their health costs are all paid for by the state of Illinois. So I can't help but imagine that possibly the state of Illinois is looking at the value of a child, looking at the cost of a child rather than the value of the child, and saying, let me see, if this child lives in the system on Medicaid, it's going to cost us this much money. But if we do an abortion, especially in the first 10 weeks, like we're cutting our costs down to $390. I can't help but think that this new bill is, in fact, a budget cut. It's heartbreaking. I think they measured the prenatal care for that child alone, hospital stay, labor and delivery, vaccinations, well-child appointments, WIC if she stays in the system, the link card, or food stamps, as you know them, probably know them as. Childcare, they say right now to have 1 year to have a newborn in childcare, should the mother choose to work full-time, costs about $7,000 a year. I think that's probably a low estimate. Education, when that child's ready to go to school, continued health care through the life of the child, the cost of that child is mounting, and the state is paying for so many of those children. It's heartbreaking to think that they would consider throwing away the life of this child in order to save money, but I can't help but wonder, wish I would have been in on those discussions to find out if that was their motivation. So why should this matter to you? Many of you aren't from Illinois. In fact, raise your hand if you came in from a different state. I'd love to see that. So quite a few of you have come in from a different area. Why should this, what's happening in the state of Illinois, matter to you? If this can happen here, I think there's potential legal precedent is set federally, and it could begin happening in your states, it could begin happening in your churches as we lose our freedoms, and as the life of a child begins to become even more devalued than we've seen it since 1973. So what do we do about that? I think education is a huge piece of, I know that's what we base a lot of our ministry on, is education. People need to know about this. I was talking to my sister on the phone even today, and I mentioned the House bill and how I was going to be speaking on that today, and I said, you know, your husband is a detective here in the state of Illinois. Like, you could get a free abortion this year. And she's like, what are you talking about? My own sister didn't know about it, and I don't know why I haven't had this conversation with her before. You know, I think sometimes we think, oh, this isn't polite dinner time conversation. But we need to be talking about this, don't we? A lot of people in the church don't even know that these kind of things are happening. We need to be educating people on the sanctity of human life. January is coming up. We take a whole month, right, to emphasize that. We take one Sunday that we call Sanctity of Human Life Sunday, and we celebrate the value of life, and we promote that. But what about 52 weeks a year of us promoting the value of life, the sanctity of human life, teaching people and educating them on prenatal development and when life begins? We need to be paying attention to legislation. A lot of people didn't know this bill was in the House and then on to the Senate. It didn't know that it was on the, Governor Rauner's desk for him to consider. We need to be looking to see what kind of legislation is being looked at in our state and our federal government, and we need to be proactive in speaking to our legislators about how we feel about it. We need to be a voice in our communities to let other people know. Did you know that this is out there? Do you know that there's this bill that Governor Rauner is considering signing, or that the House is discussing? We can't just sit back and react to the passing of a bill. We have to be involved before the bill becomes a law. We have to be a voice for the unborn. We have to be a voice for our freedoms as well, or they'll be gone before we know it. We need to vote. We need to look and see what our candidates really stand for. I know already the pro-life community in the state of Illinois is looking for a candidate for Republican governor that actually is pro-life. They'll actually do what they campaign and say that they will do. I know there's a lot of a movement happening even right now around potential candidates for that position. I would encourage you to support what's happening, organizations like Lutherans for Life, or as well as your local pregnancy centers. You see, we're not politically involved, so to have a CEO of a pregnancy resource center come and talk about politics is kind of a rare thing. It's one of those things we try to be careful not to do. I'm not trying to pick a fight with the state of Illinois. They picked it first. But what we do is we speak individually with each woman, one at a time. Every woman who walks through our door, we reach out to her individually, and we love her individually. We don't judge her, but we try to see where she's at, and we try to help meet her needs. We try to help protect her and give her the courage to say, this is my baby and I choose life. And that's what we're going to continue to do. So in the pregnancy center, one of our responses to that is we work with women every single day coming into our 12 locations. We want to empower her and to give her the courage to say, not my baby. You can't have my baby. You'll pay for the education. You'll pay for my birth, but you will not pay for an abortion. You're not going to talk me in to throwing my baby away. So we're going to try to help her stand in protection against her baby, even when she's being offered this gift of a free abortion. We're going to work together, and I would encourage everyone to continue to work together. We are better together, aren't we? I love that I'm here today. I'm not a Lutheran. I have a lot of respect for the Lutheran Church. I was raised in the Nazarene Church. But Nazarenes and Lutherans and Catholics, we should all be working together on this issue. We should all be coming together with one voice, especially against legislation like this. I think sometimes we worry so much about losing our nonprofit status if we get involved in politics, but we're at risk of losing that already. So let's get involved and let's be a voice. The pregnancy centers in the state of Illinois have come together. When this bill was passed, we began to meet together. We're already a group of 12, but a lot of centers stand alone. And so we started coming together. We have these quarterly meetings that are kind of regional across the state of Illinois so that we can meet with pregnancy centers, close, and directors, and we've been having these strategy meetings of how to end abortion in the state of Illinois. We're not going to give up. And we're talking individually about, so there's these strategy sessions against like even one abortion clinic. How are we going to close this abortion clinic? And at first I thought it was this grandiose idea, and at first they were like, we need to pray. And I thought, we've been praying since 1973. I believe in prayer, but give me something else. I even said this to her. Give me something else. Give me strategy. She's like, there's going to be so much more to this, but we are going to start here. We're going to pray that God will show us the strategy. And she told me the other day that there is a very strong chance the Granite City Abortion Clinic is about to close, which is unbelievable. Yes. That is the abortion clinic in the state of Illinois that does the late-term abortions up to 24 weeks. They have been known or accused of doing abortions much later than that as well. And if you would have asked me if there was any chance that that abortion clinic was going to close, I would have said, no, that's like probably the biggest abortion clinic in the state of Illinois. But I was wrong. God is big, and I think sometimes we limit him. And so it is with confidence now that I go to prayer to say, Lord, let this be true, that this abortion clinic in Southern Illinois would close its doors. I want to end on the note of prayer because I do believe that prayer is huge. I believe that us praying in unity to a God who loves these children and these women much more than we can, that is more passionate about injustice than I feel in my own heart. I know that this breaks his heart. And so when we come together as one voice praying to him, let's continue to remember the unborn and the women that are coming into the doors of the pregnancy center, the women in this next year who will be tempted by this offer of a free abortion in the state of Illinois. Would you be praying for the protection of their children? Thank you so much for having me come.
Any questions?
If you have a question, okay. Sure.
Yeah, I heard just about 2 weeks ago, driving down the road listening to a radio program from Chicago, that there is actually a Democratic female candidate for governor who's pro-life.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know anything about that? And is that at all hopeful?
It sounds like it. It sounds like those who are building support around her are very encouraged. At the thought. So I think you're probably going to hear a lot more about that. I can't wait to find out a little bit more too and hear from her because from what they say, she sounds like possibly a candidate that could potentially win an election in the state of Illinois. It's hard to do for a Republican to, but a pro-life Democrat maybe could. I don't know. I need a lot more information before I know I'll cast my vote that way. But I'm excited to hear that there's potential. There are a lot of pro-life leaders in the state of Illinois really excited about her. So I think you'll probably hear more in the coming days.
Maybe you said it, I walked in late, but is there, besides the Grand City, is there one that does late term? Is that the only one in Illinois that was doing?
The latest.
40 weeks. Is there a potential of another abortion clinic in Illinois that can do them that late?
That's a great question. As of right now, you can't do them that late. So what will happen when this bill comes, when it actually becomes effective, whether that's January 1st or June 1st, who's going to be, what doctors are going to step forward and start doing these late-term abortions? And I don't know the answer to that because no doctors are doing them right now. So I don't even know if the abortionists who do up to 24 weeks would be willing to do a 36-week. I don't know. But that's another way we could be praying, is the doctors would be the one to block this and say, well, I'm not going to do it.
But are you saying that in Illinois they can't do it that late?
In Illinois, it's currently through 24 weeks. This new House bill will pay for it up to 40 weeks. So the doctor's going to have to be willing to do it, right? Any other questions? All right, thank you.